I'm just going to show you the NYC Votes website. We're going to poke around in there a little bit. So what we're looking at here is NYC Votes. The website, you can just go to your browser and go to evotes.org, a good resource for all things related to voting in New York City specifically. They're not always as up to date on things like the ballot and who's on the ballot and stuff like that. I wanted to look at this because there are some proposals on the ballot that they do already have laid out for you. So we're going to look through those a little bit. You can't see the full ballot yet. And when we can, I will walk you through the process of making your choices ahead of time so you're not second guessing anything once you go to actually vote. One thing I wanted to show you about this website, which is run by the Campaign Finance Board, so it's nonpartisan. They're not trying to get you to vote for anyone in particular or to vote any particular way on any ballot initiatives. This is really about just making sure that you have access to the information that you need to vote, be it dates that you need to get things in, the actual election day itself, finding your polling place, and then just knowing what is going to be on the ballot. First thing I want to show you, though, is that the full website is available in a number of different languages. If it's better for you to read this in another language, just go up to the top right-hand corner, click here. You can select the language you want, and it should translate the entire website for you. So once you start clicking on things, everything will be in the language you've selected. So that's helpful. And like I said, there's a number of different languages to choose from here, and the whole thing will be translated for you. For our purposes right now, we're going to go back to English, but again, you can make that change whenever you'd like. So on here, the first thing I want to point out, this is just the first page when you go to nycvotes.org, is you'll see the key dates. Remember, you need to get your change of address in by October 20th with your registration. So if your address has changed since the last time you voted, you need to make sure that you've got that. Early voting starts on Saturday, October 25th. Ends on Sunday, November 2nd. Voter registration deadline is October 25th. October 25th is the deadline for a couple of things. You need to get your vote by mail application by October 20th. You need to apply for your vote by mail application by October 25th. And then actual election day is November 4th. So let's look. Here you have these buttons where you can find your poll site. That's going to be really helpful as you're planning where you're going to go, either for early voting or day of voting. Register to vote. This is a quick way to get to that registration. I'll just show you where that goes. So you enter your address and they'll take you to the site to register. And then this is just some analysis that they have about voter actions. That's more like research that they've done. Your voting rights, just a number of different things on here that may be of interest. If you are interested in joining an event, something about getting out the vote, you can volunteer and do that sort of thing. Here we have frequently asked questions. What I wanted to get to at the very bottom here, if you scroll all the way down, I think it comes up as a pop-up menu too. You can actually sign up to stay up to date with NYC Votes, which is a good idea if you would like to have reminders about voting, about those deadlines, just updates about anything related to voting now and in the future, especially the elections that don't fall in November, the primary elections, things like that. Sometimes they can slip my mind. So it's a good idea that if you need these updated reminders, to go and sign up for this, either by email or putting your phone number so you can get text. I know probably I'll get a lot of emails and a lot of texts, but this is one that I would actually look at. Go ahead and put your email and phone number in there, first name, last name, and you can subscribe to get those updates so you don't miss an election, you don't miss any updated information about that. I'm just going to scroll back up to the top. One of the things I wanted to focus on today is this tab that says what's on the ballot. And like I said, eventually I think this should have everything that will be on your ballot. They'll be different for you based on where you're voting from. But we're all going to be voting for like mayor, controller, a number of city offices. We're also all going to have these ballot proposals that will be on our ballot to vote for. And what these are actual measures, like actions that the city will take based on whether people vote for them or against them. So these are things that you're voting for an office, but you're voting for something to happen or not happen, a policy to go through or not go through based on the majority of people voting one way or the other. So there are 6 of these ballot proposals on the ballot this year. There's suggested changes to the state and city's governing document. So voters get to decide on which of these changes we want to see passed. So this is where you get to be very active in what is being done by the government. What they'll have on here is like they'll have a real short description of what the ballot proposal would do. And it's meant to be nonpartisan. This is not supposed to try and convince you one way or the other. These can be really confusing to me. Like I've gone into vote before and not known what the proposals were going to be on the ballot before I got there, and then just been like, I don't even know what these people are asking me. I don't know what exactly this entails. It seems too wordy and strange. Like I don't even quite know what it is I'm voting yes or no for. So it's really good to see these beforehand and to get a sense of how you would vote on them. Even looking at it from here, it can be confusing. One of the things that I will say is if you're a part of any group that does any sort of political action, that does things like endorse candidates, look out for what they're saying about these ballot proposals, because that will give you some clarity. There should be some arguments for and against it that are coming from actually people that have vested interest in this. So you can always Google these proposals and see what people are saying about them to get a good sense of which way you want to go with this. So just to give you a list of what these proposals are, there's one in here. I'll just click on this one just to show you what each of these looks like. So this first one is an amendment to allow Olympic sports complex in Essex County on state forest preserve land. So we're going to click on that plus sign, and then it'll tell you what the actual text of this will be. So allow skiing and related trail facilities on state forest preserve land. The site is 1,039 acres, requires states to add 2,500 acres of new forest land in the Adirondack Park. Yes vote would say, yes, they can build these ski trails. A no vote wouldn't say, no, they can't. This sort of is broken down here too, and tells you there are currently strict rules for this kind of construction. This would move that forward in a way that goes by those rules in some ways. And then it would also require them to add an additional 2,500 acres of forest land. If I was looking at this, I might still want some more information. So this is where I would turn and maybe Google this, look to a organization that I trust, especially someone that's talking about maybe environmental protection or maybe something from that direction, to see what they think about this. And hopefully too, I'll have some resources for you to find those back and forth conversations in the future. It's just some of this stuff has been a little slow to roll out, but just to see the things that will show up on your ballot. So you're thinking about these and thinking about how you might vote on them until you get more information, how you might do some research. So there's one about fast tracking affordable housing to build more affordable housing across the city. This will give you a sense of what this is. Number 3 is going to be to simplify the review of modest housing and infrastructure projects. Number 4 is going to be establish an affordable housing appeals board with council, borough, and citywide representation. All of these sound interesting and sound like things I want to learn more about before I make a decision. Create a digital map to modernize city operations and move local elections to presidential election years to increase voter participation. All definitely pique my interest, and I want to look out for more information on these. I Googled the first one here and found some arguments for and against. I would say do your research on these. Don't go in there without thinking about them beforehand. When we talk about filling out your sample ballot in the future, we'll look at how you can mark these off beforehand so you don't get confused when you go to vote. Sometimes I get overwhelmed with these and I forget how I had intended to vote in the first place. The last time that I voted and had actually a record of choices that I had made beforehand, that was really helpful for me. It took a lot of the stress out of because I wasn't thinking I had to remember everything that I had learned about these. So I just wanted to show you that this is where you can find some of this information and encourage you to do your own research about what the arguments for and against each of these things are. So this, I think, is where we will see information about the candidates once it's up, like once you can get the full sample ballot. Right now, it just is the ballot proposals. But again, just a reminder that we're voting for mayor, city controller, public advocate, borough president, city council, and maybe more depending on what district you're in. But all of us will be voting on these citywide offices. Just want to point out too that there will be several candidate debates as we talk about misinformation and disinformation, just people trying to convince you of things about candidates that may or may not be true. One of the best ways is just to go to the source and see what the candidates are saying themselves, see what impression you get about them when they're interacting with each other, just to make your own decisions as opposed to just listening to what other people are saying. Go to the source. And sometimes these debates can be helpful for that. So there'll be one, a mayoral debate on October 16th, and a leading contender general election debate for the mayor. I'm not sure how many that's limited to, but whoever is like the front runners in the mayoral contest will be debating on October 22nd. So if you want information about how to see these debates as a way to get a sense of who these candidates are and who you want to vote for, that's a good way to do it, that you can see for yourself and get a sense of who the candidates are. SMART is a nonprofit and therefore doesn't endorse anybody or doesn't encourage you to vote in any particular way. We do encourage you to vote, however, and it also gives you the opportunity to contribute to a candidate if that is something you would like to do. And I just want to show you this how to vote tab as well. So if you have any questions about how to vote, if you need the link to the vote by mail, if you need to go over what ranked choice voting is, it can be confusing. All of these resources are here for you under how to vote. And two, I think it's important during this time to just go back and talk about what your voting rights are. You have the right to vote. You cannot vote online at this point in time. I think that there are several states where they have online mechanisms for voting. New York is not one of them. You can, however, use the online systems to request a ballot by mail. So that's like the second best thing. And I'll show you how to do that. It was in the last one too, but you can get to it from this website as well. It'd be real convenient if we could vote online, but I think there'll probably be issues with the security of the vote too. So that's one go both ways. But vote by mail, again, if you do this before October 20th, you can request a mail ballot. And this takes you to the same screen that we looked at last time when we were requesting our mail ballot. So you just apply for an early mail ballot. Again, if you apply for an early mail ballot, you don't need any reason why you're applying for it. It's not like you have to say, I'm going to be out of the city or I can't get to the polling place. Anyone is eligible to do vote by mail as of, I think last year was the first year that they had that for everyone. I encourage you to do that as like the sort of next best thing to voting online, the next most convenient thing. It's postage paid, so you just fill it out and drop it in the mail, which, again, I encourage you to do as soon as possible after you get it, just because you don't want to accidentally hit any deadlines with that. I really do encourage you to do your research beforehand and to keep checking back on this NYC vote site because it's getting updated all the time. Some of the rollout for this particular election has been a little bit slow. There aren't sample ballots. Like I feel like this time last year, we had sample ballots available already. And I think some of that has to do with some of the uncertainty around who's running in the mayoral race. I think just some of that is a little bit more still in motion than it was last year. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's taking a little bit longer to get things up on the website that look like the complete sample ballot. If you are affiliated with a party, if you're affiliated with any sort of political action group that you trust, look up what other politicians that you trust or other organizations that you trust are saying about these ballot initiatives or candidates too. Go to trusted sources for you. I have in the past not relied completely, but in some sense on organizations that I know are aligned with my political beliefs. And they sometimes will send out emails that are like, please vote yes on proposition, whatever, and here's why. And then I can look at that argument and say, you know what, that tracks for me. That actually makes sense. And it's coming from a source that I know and an organization that I know makes decisions that I tend to agree with. So just think about that as you're going forward. If you're someone that receives a whole bunch of political emails, but some of those are actually from places that you trust and that you actually read those emails, check those out in the coming weeks because they'll probably be making endorsements, not only of candidates, but proposals. And that should give you at least a little bit of an anchor in where you're thinking about doing your research or getting more information.